Hello, Vital Art Sessions members. It's Kelly Folsom here, and I want to welcome you back into my studio for another Vital Art session. Today, I have a very special surprise for you, and that is I'm going to be showing you how to paint a sunrise or sunset. They're both very, very similar. So, and for the first time, you're going to see me working, well, maybe not for the first time. I think I've done a few other landscape lessons with using a photo for reference. So I'm going to be using this photo thanks to the courtesy of the love of my life, Monty Thompson, who takes beautiful, beautiful photos while I'm painting the sunrises in the morning. So I'm super excited to share with you all that I've learned after painting hundreds of sunrise paintings over the last 10 years. So let's dive in and get started. All right, hello everybody and welcome back. I'm going to be painting this sunrise for you, and I chose this sunrise in particular because the colors are actually pretty similar to a sunset as well. And as I said, this is a photo courtesy from Monty, and you know, I want to also point out everybody is different in how they like to work. Part of painting sunrises for me is the experience and just the in-the-moment experience. However, you know, I have heard from a lot of people like, oh, I can't wake up that early. I'm going to use some black and crimson here to get this really dark down here, but I can't wake up that early. So, you know, if it works better for you to wake up and take photos or to do sunsets instead of sunrises, you know, go for it. Don't let any of those things stop you from exploring this subject matter. It is such a rewarding subject matter to explore, whether it's sunsets, sunrises, whether you work from photo or from life, plein air, you know, so just find what works for you. Don't let anything stop you or keep you from painting. Just figure out what is going to get you to the easel and pushing that paint around. That is all that matters. All right, so as you can see, the very first thing I do is block in this dark. So the dark of night, I want to really get those values as deep and dark and also cool as they can go. So I just use some black and alizarin crimson down here for the land. And so that's the first thing I always do, is set my darkest dark first. Very similar to still life painting as well. All right, the next thing I do is I get a sense of what's the spirit of the clouds, if there are clouds. So what is that basic movement or shape? So we've got these big clouds up here closer to us. And so clouds that are closer to you, you're going to see more of the underplane, and they're going to be rounder. I'm just using the same color, just with more medium and kind of thinner, just to block in the shape. And I love that there is this opening here. So in the beginning, I just kind of plot out what are the big shapes of my clouds. Now, when you're working from photo, that's not quite as critical maybe as working from life, because working from life, the clouds are constantly moving, sometimes faster than other times. But so deciding what you want to do with those clouds first is pretty important. Now, to get perspective on these clouds, and again, this is just black and alizarin right now, and I'm just using a lot of medium and kind of scrubbing it on thin, okay, just to get the shapes and the values. What was I saying? Now I forgot. I should also mention I'm using oil primed linen today instead, just to show you some variety of surfaces. What I was saying about perspective. Let's go back to perspective because that's really important. So the clouds up here are actually the ones that are closer to you. The clouds further back in the distance, those are the ones further away, closer to that horizon line. So these are going to be bigger, they're going to be rounder on the bottom, and then they start getting smaller in scale with the perspective. by varying degrees as they go back into space. And they also start getting a little bit flatter on the bottom until they kind of just become more like horizontal lines, let's say. All right. So that might be about, the idea for my cloud pattern to get that started. And that's without color. All right. And then now I could actually go into some colors. So let's start mixing up some of these really beautiful violets up here at the top. So I would start with all of the under color of the sky first. This color here, the color of the clouds before you go into the color of the light. So basically kind of like what is the color without the color of the light on top. So I'm going to use a lot of ultramarine blue and some alizarin. And actually that might be a little bit cold, so let's put a little bit of that red oxide or Avignon orange, one of the two, whichever one you have. And we're just going to block this in solid enough so that the color and the value reads beautifully. We're not going to try to get all those subtle gradations just yet, but basically everything up here, actually this side goes a little bit more to the blue. That blue is going to darken it, so I'm going to add in some white back in. So we will get a little bit of a color shift over here. So anything that's further away from the sun is going to get a little cooler. More in those purples, blue grays. Then anything closer to the sun is going to get warmer. Now, as we move down here, again, this is getting closer to the sun, so actually some of like the orange is mixing in with that. So it's going to kind of make more of a gray, like a grayer tone here. So kind of like a warmer gray. So add in some cadmium orange, or if you don't have cad orange, do cad red light and cad yellow deep mixed together. Actually, ow, sorry. I didn't see that I didn't reload this cad orange. I did buy some cadmium orange just for sunrises because I'm doing so many, and it's a great quick neutralizer for blues. All right, and let's add some white back into that. Get it a little bit lighter. Now, up at the top of this cloud, I could actually put in a touch more blue because again, this top of the cloud is just a little further away. And then we get all these little puffy, little lacy clouds, which we could do more with perhaps later on. But really get all these big shapes laid in first. That one, actually there's some extra ones over here. I don't want to get too many small shapes or it's going to be kind of hard to paint around it. All right, and then more of that kind of at the base of this cloud as this gets a little closer to that, where that sunlight is going to be like here. Now from the photo, I'm kind of going to scooch the sunlight a little bit closer to the center. So make sure you adjust your angle of where you are based on what's going to look better in your composition. And typically, it's going to look better either on one of those thirds or closer to the center, since it's kind of the star of the show. Now, as we get, again, closer down here, these are some of those kind of gray clouds. That's a little too light in value, but they go a little warmer. So let's put some transparent red oxide and cad orange in there, just a touch. Make sure the value stays the same. That first pass I put in was too light. So you do want to make sure that these values stay pretty close. They can get a little lighter as they get around the sun here, but especially when you're doing a gradation on a big shape, you can change the color or the saturation or temperature, but try not to change the value too much. We get all these little ones. All right, now the bottom down here, it gets quite a bit lighter and cooler because it's further back. So I'm going to put a lot of white into this mixture here, and that's pretty good actually. You don't want to go too high of chroma right away on an area like this because you want to save all of your pure color and high chroma for that sunlight. So this is kind of like painting in your background and your shadows first in a still life before you paint the lights. And then once you start painting the lights, you're always trying to think ahead, like, okay, well, what is the most colorful? Like, wow, look how much that alizarin changed that mixture. That is crazy. So trying to reserve, some room for the chroma elsewhere. Now, right around the center again is the same gradation. So anything closer to the sun or right below or right above the sun is going to get a little warmer, a little more heat. And so I can put in some more cad orange and some alizarin right around here. And the alizarin is still pretty cool, so it's not going to feel like direct sunlight. And then, some of this blue can seep into the mixture over here on this side. So everything's going to get slightly cooler as it moves away from that sunlight. And I would just keep this back horizon line, not totally soft and mushy, but soft enough. Now I'm going to really wipe that brush good, really good with this paper towel. And I do tend to paint my sunrises with one brush, usually on a smaller panel, but I just use one brush typically to paint them on the 5x7. So this is the 8x10, so I'm using a bigger brush, a number 6. Generally, I use a number 4 to paint my 5x7s, paint the whole thing, and then I might hit some impasto with a palette knife. All right, now the same gradation happens for the sky color. So we've done cloud colors first, moving from cool and dark up at the top to slightly warmer and grayer and lighter as we go down to the bottom. And then the sky is going to do the same thing, but it's going to be more of like a kind of like an ultramarine blue. It's going to move from blue to green, to kind of a yellow and orange color. So we're going to start with this blue up here, more of a pure blue, just blue and white. And it's okay if some of this, softens edges and mixes in right now. We can always reestablish some of those edges if needed. There's even kind of some deeper blue sky showing through, so I'm going to put some more blue over here. Some little sky holes, but they're really faint. I don't want to do too many because it might break up that shape too much. But then as we move down the sky, we're going to start to move into some greenish tones. So cerulean is a color that I pretty much only use for landscape painting. For sky color, it's more of a green blue. And if you don't have cerulean, you can of course use your phthalo green mixed with some ultramarine and maybe even a touch of yellow. Right now I'm going to put this in first just with white, and then I'm going to mix some yellow into it. Again, I'm just going to kind of scrub these edges a little bit here just to soften edges right now. Okay, now we're going to start to add a little more yellow. So I'm going to add some Naples Yellow Light, some white. All these colors are going to darken the mixture. So it's good to make sure, again, just to maintain the value structure, that you add a little touch of white every time you add a color, because the color is always going to darken it. So let's do cerulean with the Naples Yellow, and that's going to go kind of greenish here. Now you could mute this a little bit if you wanted to. I'll show you real quickly just with like the this kind of mauve-y pinky color if you wanted to take this a little bit of a grayer green. You can quickly mute anything. The great thing about sunrises and sunsets is you're always dealing with cool and warm and complementary colors. So over here and over next to the sun, it does start getting more of that heat, more of that orangey tone. So I'm going to throw in some more of the orange as we transition down here. It's very subtle. You want to keep the, again, you want to keep the value the same. It's okay if some of this goes on kind of thinner. And of course, this is the zone where there's so much sunlight and that burst of light. But I want to paint underneath first, sort of a neutral tone before I put that intense heat on top. Now it really starts getting more orangey, almost to the same as what this color is down here. And that blue to green to kind of warm orangey tone happens during the daytime too. It's just more subtle during the daytime. Yeah, but the same thing still does happen. So it's not just something that happens in the morning or evening. So the one thing that is different about sunrises is that and even sunsets, once the sun gets low enough, is that it's really it's just a different angle of light source, so all of the underplanes are getting more light. All right, so now comes the big bang moment, the big climactic moment, and that is getting that pure hit of color. And then we're going to do all of those reflected lights on the underplanes of the clouds, all those really hot reds and oranges. All right. So clean off the palette before you do that, because this is the moment where you really don't want any of that complementary color or gray stuff getting in there and killing your color. Oops. Killing the purity of your color. So I'm going to start with a brush, and let's just start with some cadmium yellow deep and some white. I'm just going to start hitting this. It's almost like a scumble. I've got so much thick paint on my brush. Okay, and then that actually comes like all the way over here. Remember, you have thinner, flatter lines closer down to the horizon. And then I'm going to add some orange into this. I do like a little bit of white added for body. So it's going to go more orange as we get up here and then into the red orange. So I'm kind of scumbling this over actually. So I'm really not digging up the paint that's underneath very much, just by keeping my brush flatter to the surface and using thick paint on top of thin. So over here, we get some of these, and then you can see how just layering that over that dark, wet into wet, how we're starting to get more of a look of glow already. That orange also, red and orange, kind of repeats down here as well. And it's okay if some of that mixes in. And then if you do lose some of your clouds, you've still got some of this kind of gray color from all the other colors mixed together from earlier. So just dip back into that and start to establish some smaller shapes, some smaller clouds on top of that light. Now this is not our full hit of sunlight even still, so we're going to get there. I'm just finessing this a little bit more. Okay, because I like how those, again, just to get more perspective, I like how those shapes just get smaller and smaller as they, go down further away. All right, now I'm just going to scooch this over just a touch, or just take it off. And now we're going to go to that cadmium lemon. This is our even brighter, lighter cadmium lemon, and this is kind of right where the climax of the sun is. Now, I don't really see a specific sun shape on this particular one because I think because of the clouds are kind of veiling that shape on this day. I'm just going to build up to this cad lemon, and that is our magical sunrise or sunset moment there. Okay, and then if you want to get a little extra hit, go to a little bit of white, just right in the center. Okay. So that's our climax. That is the ultimate light and bright on the picture. Now, to move forward into some of these underplanes, we're going to go back to some of our orange tones. Actually, there is a little bit of this yellow and white, for example, on the underplane, very underplane of this. And remember that these are going to curve a little bit more, this shape here, but we kind of want to do that same gradation from a really lemony, or it's kind of like these two yellows together. It's not quite as bright as that, but a little bit of white, especially right here on the sort of the apex underneath. And then we want to move more into the orange, like a little orange band, and this red, the cad red. Okay. And then we're going to kind of blend that in to the cloud. So I'm going to wipe my brush, and I'm going to take some of this kind of cloud-like color in a little bit of alizarin too, so a little cooler. And less paint on the brush, let's just kind of feather, blend some of that up into that cloud. This has some little baby clouds coming off of it. Kind of a red, violet, gray tone. But we just want to we don't want to have a hard edge here. We want hard edges on the outside, softer edges on the inside. The danger, in my opinion, working from photo on something like a sunrise is you might just really stiffen up and kind of start doing like a paint by number type of thing. And when you do that, you miss sort of this lifelike moving quality that happens with sunrises and sunsets. You know, the fact that clouds are very transient, always moving, they're full of energy and life. And so if you start stiffening up, just remind yourself these are not going to look like clouds if I do that too much. So try to speed up a little bit, paint like you are painting from life. Because when you do speed up, like what I'm trying to do here now, is I start, really forcing myself to make more decisions without too much overthinking. And I'm also, right now, what I am thinking about is movement. How can I get the feeling of movement into my brushstroke? So let's go for some more cad red medium here, or cad red light if that's what you have on your palette. And now this is kind of the fun part, is all these little kind of curved shapes on because this is the underplane of this cloud that we're really seeing a lot of. Actually, this goes a lot more orange here. But cad red light is cooler than cad orange and cad yellow deep, and it's also warmer than alizarin crimson. So I've got sort of this cool red mixture down here, that's going to kind of go on first into this deep purple that I started with. Need a little bit of white in that to lighten it. So we are changing the value now, bringing in these underplane lights of this particular cloud. But this is kind of the drama and magic of this particular sunrise scene, is all these deep reds and oranges over here. So I am trying to get like that curving motion, leaving that dark showing through underneath. This all actually kind of connects up, so now let's paint over the blue to kind of get that connection. And again, remember, if you need a neutral gray, just mix your blue with your orange. And yeah, blue, red, and yellow makes gray. So if you have more blue and red in the mix, it's going to be more purple. If you have more red and orange in the mix, it's going to be more orangey. So, but just know that, you know, you're using all these three colors throughout the process here, and that's your magic mixture: blue, red, and yellow, the three primaries. And it's just a matter really now of trying to fine-tune the gradation a bit more, that cool to warm gradation a bit more. So I definitely think it all needs to get warmer over here, again, closer to the sun. So let's get some extra hits of heat in this area with more of the orange. Okay, and that's going to make this feel cooler and feel like it's further away from that sunlight. Put some white in this just to get the value up a bit. So if you look at your palette, you know, if you've laid your colors out accordingly, like I have, you know that anything that gets closer to this yellow in white is getting more influenced by the sun. So there is a reason why I lay out the colors the way that I do. It's very logical. It goes according to value, and also goes, you know, let's say, you know, from warm to cools and light to dark. So of course, by the time we get over here, this is like very cool. This is almost purple in this family. And then I think we can get a little more subtle of a gradation here, kind of a middle red for these underplane lights. I'm thinking that this shape would be nice to kind of fine-tune that shape a little bit more there. Okay. Now, last but not least, you can either use a palette knife or you can use a soft hair brush, you know, again, just to further get some of these interior edges perhaps a little bit softer, or tie colors together if it's getting a little too kind of polka dotty looking, you know, too broken up essentially, or too much glare. So the underplane color of the clouds are kind of like painting a background. You don't really want a ton of texture there. You want to kind of maintain your texture more in this zone of high activity of light. Remember, you know, that texture texture comes forward to the eye, so do busy broken up shapes. So you definitely want to kind of go through and like simplify any shapes that, and kind of tie shapes together to make bigger shapes if any of these shapes are starting to take away too much attention from the light shapes. Now, like, all this is part of the activity that we want, so that's fine for that kind of stuff to start to get a little more detailed or a little more fine-tuned, or like little negative shapes, because that's kind of starting to get to the point of climax in the painting. But I think especially like up here, maybe we want to just tie that stuff together a bit more. Maybe take out some brush strokes over here on the corners. And I really want to get the sense that these clouds are starting to flatten a bit more as they go down. Maybe not quite as curved on these. Okay. And that's it, guys. So painting sunrises and sunsets, I think the most important things are, making sure you get, if you have clouds, getting the perspective of the clouds. And of course, the biggest thing is that cool to warm gradation from the sunlight that's happening in the sky. So, and then of course, just reserving your chroma for where the most heat of the sunlight is. Because as you can see, like here, I can always put a little more heat or a little more chroma into this. And then just value control. You've got to get the drama of the contrast between the darks and the lights. So even like these clouds way up at the top that are closer to us, they are the color of night, right? Cool tones of night, blues, violets, blue grays, cooler, darker values. And then where that daybreak is happening, you get that hit of, really strong light there. So yeah, so watch your value contrast, watch your use of color, your saturation of color, and make sure you're paying attention to cool versus warm. And of course also it's like, oh, it's so simple, so many things to think about. And then try to get some lifelike quality into those clouds by loosening up your brush strokes, going with the movement of a cloud, trying to curve your brush strokes for the underplanes of these clouds here, because they're puffier and we're seeing more of the underplane of them. Yeah, so. All right, everybody, I hope that this has been helpful to you and that you enjoyed it. And as always, I wish you happy painting. Bye.